Wonderful. Thanks so much. So my journey in LifeVantage began in November of 2010. At that time, I was working full-time as a cardiologist, not really looking for anything else. And I was asked to watch an ABC News investigative report by Maria Williams. And Maria did not know me. It was a cold call. She got my name off of a list. Didn't know where I lived. She didn't know that I was a cardiologist. She just got my name. She had an idea that I was into health and nutrition, but that was about it. She called me and she asked me indeed if I was, and I said, yes, I am interested in health and nutrition. And she said, well, I've got an ABC News story I'd like you to watch and then give me your feedback. So I said, yes, I'd be happy to do that. But I didn't watch it the first time. She called me a week later and she asked if I'd watched it, and I said no, but I would. And so another week passed and I didn't watch it. And she called me back and I said, no, I'm sorry, I haven't watched it. And I said to myself, I need to watch this video so this woman stops calling me. So indeed I did. I watched it that night. I was on call, and when I'm on call, I don't sleep well because I'm just waiting for my pager to go off with the next emergency at the hospital. And I watched it about midnight. And when I watched it, I was very intrigued. You know, being a physician, I'm very skeptical about things, although I do have an open mind for nutritional supplements and preventive things. And that's what led me to do my fellowship in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, was my interest in that. I've always had a strong interest in prevention. So as I'm watching the ABC News investigative report, what really struck me was the fact that this product, the flagship product, Protandim NRF2, was something that reduced oxidative stress. And I knew that oxidative stress was linked to hundreds of different diseases. Now, I'm not trying to make the statement that Protandim cures, treats, or prevents anything, but just the fact that oxidative stress was linked to so many different things, I knew that if you had a way to reduce it, that could be a very, very beneficial thing. And myself being a cardiologist, obviously I was more interested in the aspects related to cardiovascular things and so forth, but I did have an understanding that oxidative stress was the root cause of so many different things. So I finished watching the ABC News investigative report, very intrigued, but I wasn't ready to hop on board. I was still skeptical. So what I did at that point is I went to the website called pubmed.gov, pubmed.gov, which is in the US, the National Institutes of Health website for medical research. It's basically the repository for all scientific research in the medical field. And so doctors know about this website, at least here in the US, and they go to it all the time to find out the newest treatment for this, that, and the other disease, or to find out what medication works for what. And I mean, it's just a great resource to have. And it's funded by our National Institutes of Health here in the US, so it's completely unbiased. It's our tax dollars at work. And so I went to pubmed.gov, typed in the term Protandim. And let me back up for a moment and let you know that since I am kind of known as the preventive cardiologist, I would get lots of patients that would come in and ask me to take a look at this new thing that they had found, this new supplement or whatever, and give my opinion. And so typically what I would do is I would go to PubMed and I would type in the name of that supplement or the name of that product and come to find that there was no research behind it. And so I'd go back to the person, usually a patient of mine, and I'd say, you know, I really can't give you a recommendation on this because there's no research. So frankly, that's what I was expecting to find when I typed in Protandim into the search box on PubMed. But what I found is at that time, this was back in November of 2010, there were actually 7 published peer-reviewed scientific studies on Protandim. And I was looking at the places that were doing the research, and they are top-notch medical universities in the United States and some from around the world, places like University of Colorado, Colorado State, Louisiana State University, Ohio State, Texas Tech, Harvard, and so forth. And then I'm looking at the things that are being studied: melanoma skin cancer, heart disease, muscular dystrophy, and so forth. And then I read through every one of the studies that they had at the time. And the one study that really caught my attention more than any other was a study that was published in the journal Circulation. And that's the Journal of the American Heart Association. And when I saw that the American Heart Association published a study on a branded supplement sold through a network marketing company, my jaw just about hit the ground. And I said to myself, that was my epiphany moment. And I said to myself, this is not snake oil, because the American Heart Association is not going to publish an article about snake oil. So I was all in at that point to take the product. I had zero interest in doing the business, but all I wanted to do was get the product for myself, my family, and a few friends that I had that I knew that had significant health conditions. So I ordered the biggest pack that they had at the time, which was called a Vantage Pack. And then I ordered more product on top of that because I had more people that I wanted to share this with. And so the next morning, I got a phone call from Maria Williams and Carrie Williams and Carrie Dickey welcoming me to the team. And I'm like, guys, you know, thanks for the call, but I'm really busy right now and I don't have time to talk. And they said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm actually a cardiologist and I'm in clinic and I'm behind, and my nurse is pointing to her watch saying we need to get going. And so at that point, there was dead silence for about 10 seconds. And if you know Carrie Williams and Carrie Dickey and Maria Williams, to know that those three women could be silent for 10 seconds is a feat of its own. But nonetheless, the next thing that came out of Carrie Dickey's mouth after the silence was broken was, and I can see in retrospect what she was thinking. She was thinking, oh, this is a doctor. This is a smart guy. We need to raise our conversation to a different level with him. And so the next thing out of her mouth was, well, you know, Mark, this is a NRF2 activator. And I said, that's great. And I had absolutely no idea what a NRF2 activator was. So I decided I better go learn what a NRF2 activator is if I'm going to be knowledgeable about this product. So about 2 months passed, and during that time, I started taking Protandim, as did my wife and our family and some of our close friends who had some health conditions, and we saw improvement in things. And that led me to think, you know, this is really an interesting idea here. And after some arm twisting by Maria and Carrie, they got me to attend an event called an Elite Academy, which happened to be in San Diego in January of 2011. Now, I live in South Dakota, where in January it's very cold and we get snow, and any chance that you have to escape that and go to a warm climate, such as San Diego, you jump at the chance. So it didn't take a lot of arm twisting to get my wife and I to decide to attend this event. And so we went down there not really with the intention of jumping into the business, but basically to dip our toe in the water, learn a bit more about the product and the company, and basically go for a long, nice weekend in a warm climate. And so what we did is after we got there, we heard Dr. McCord speak, we heard the top distributors, the top corporate staff, and it was following that we decided, you know what, this is something that we could do as a plan B. And my wife thought that I was crazy, and she said, we don't have time to do this. You're a full-time cardiologist. I'm a stay-at-home mom, but we've got 2 very active kids and a lot of activities, and I'm shuttling them around, you know, to all these events and so forth. Where are we going to find the time to do this? And I said, I don't know. They told us that we could just weave this into the nooks and crannies of our lives. And so that's exactly what we decided to do. But we hit the ground running, and we worked very hard, and we talked to as many people as we possibly could. And we did meetings. We did weekly meetings here in my hometown of Sioux Falls, and it just grew and grew and grew. Now, many people think that I just went and signed up all my patients, and that's how we got to the level of Pro 9. That's not the case at all. In the healthcare system that I was working in, I was not allowed to do that. I was not allowed to talk to my patients about this. And I just had to bite my tongue every time a patient would tell me something that I thought could improve by NRF2 activation. But I did not sign up any of my patients. So we really built this the way that everybody else does, and that's by talking to people and sharing what we've experienced. And it spread like wildfire. It just really took off. But what really attracted me to the company, frankly, was the science. You know, I wouldn't be involved with this if we were selling laundry soap and lipstick. You know, that's not me. We're involved with this because of the science behind Protandim. And now I believe we're up to 26 published peer-reviewed scientific studies on PubMed, and you can go to that website and download them each for yourself and read through them. But it has become a very, very big deal for me. And I've decided to learn as much as I can about NRF2, and I've kind of become a bit of an expert on NRF2 But it's such a new area, such a new field that most physicians have no clue what NRF2 is. And so it's very common when people first start taking Protandim or hear about it, where they'll say, well, I want to talk to my doctor about this and get their opinion. And I say to them, okay, I can understand where you're coming from with that. But the question to ask your doctor is, would reducing oxidative stress be a good thing for me? And if they say yes, to me, that's pretty much all the validation that you need. You know, the other question you can ask if you want to be a little bit more direct with them is you can say, doctor, tell me what you know about NRF2 or NRF2 activation. And if they give you the deer in the headlights look and have no idea what you're talking about, then my suggestion would be, what business do they have making a recommendation whether you should or should not be taking an NRF2 activator when they don't even know what it is? But again, the science is what attracted me. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important for you learning about this to understand why this is such a big deal. So Dr. McCord, for those of you that may not know, won the Elliott Cresson Medal, which is a very prestigious award here in the US given to distinguished inventors and scientists for something that they discover or create that changes the way that we do life. So Alexander Graham Bell, Orville Wright, the Madame Curie, Henry Ford, and so forth are some of the recipients of that award. So Dr. McCord received this award for his discovery of an enzyme called SOD, or superoxide dismutase. He wrote his PhD thesis on the discovery of that back in 1969. And so following that, he recognized that superoxide dismutase was the most potent scavenger of free radicals that had ever been found. And if he could find a way to get the body to make more of this enzyme, he could have something that could literally treat hundreds of different health conditions. So he set off to try to find something that would do that. And he tried a lot of synthetic compounds, basically trying to develop a drug that would increase SOD. Some things worked, but typically caused too many side effects for people to take. So in the early 2000s, he switched from synthetic compounds, and they started looking, he and some other investigators started looking at plant-based compounds instead. So long story short, what they discovered is that the 5 ingredients in Protandim caused a significant increase in the production of that SOD. And initially when they discovered it, they did not know that it worked through the NRF2 pathway, but that came about a year or two later. And I'm going to talk more about the NRF2 pathway because that's really the key differentiating factor between this and everything else that you know about antioxidants. But for a moment, let's just back up and talk about what it is that Protandim does. It reduces oxidative stress. And oxidative stress can be defined in layman's terms as rusting of the body from the inside out. When we eat food and we burn that food as fuel, we create energy in the form of ATP. The mitochondria in our cells is what creates that energy. The process, however, also produces these molecules called free radicals. And these are very toxic molecules that will damage anything that they bump into. And so they can damage all parts of the cells, and they can lead to all sorts of different diseases depending upon what part of the cell that they cause damage to. But the damage that the free radicals do is what is called oxidative stress, okay? Now, when we're young, our bodies do a very effective job at fighting those free radicals because we have a built-in antioxidant defense system. Our own cells produce enzymes like superoxide dismutase and catalase and glutathione and hundreds of others that will neutralize the free radicals before they can do damage to our cells. The problem is, as we age, we slowly lose the ability to fight those free radicals because we make less and less of those protective enzymes. And so, every decade of life past the age of 20, we make less and less of those protective enzymes. And so the free radicals do more damage, leading to the aging process and then all of the diseases associated with aging. So what Protandim essentially does is it brings the level of those antioxidant enzymes that our own cells produce back up to what you had when you were 20 years old. And so that's how this can effectively reduce the free radicals. And we have a human clinical study showing a 40% reduction in oxidative stress in humans on average after 30 days. To my knowledge, there is not another product on the market, drug or supplement, that can make that claim. And so myself, being a cardiologist, recognizing the role that oxidative stress played in the development of cardiovascular disease, obviously I got very excited about that. But in addition to the aging process, we live in a very toxic environment, and there's a lot of other things in our environment that increase oxidative stress even further. And those things include smoking, alcohol, pesticides that are sprayed on our crops, inflammation itself, poor diet, pollution, drugs, radiation. Myself as a cardiologist, I was in a cath lab doing coronary angiograms just about every day of my practice, literally standing 2 to 3 feet away from the x-ray tube that was being used to create the pictures. And yes, I worried about the long-term effects of all of that radiation exposure on my body. Stress can increase oxidative stress, injury, trauma, aging, infection, too much and not enough exercise. All of these things can lead to increased oxidative stress. So what does oxidative stress do? What are some of the health conditions that it leads to? Well, in the heart, it leads to cardiovascular disease such as myocardial infarction, hypertension, congestive heart failure. In the skin, it leads to things like melanoma, dermatitis, psoriasis, sunburn, aging of the skin, kidney failure. Every type of joint disease that you can imagine is related to oxidative stress. In the lungs, things like asthma, emphysema, and cancer. The brain is very susceptible to oxidative stress, leading to things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ADHD, migraines, cancer. The immune system, there's a lot of autoimmune disorders that are related directly to oxidative stress, like lupus, inflammatory bowel disease, multiple sclerosis, and so forth. In the blood vessels, atherosclerosis, endothelial dysfunction. In the eyes, macular degeneration, retinal degeneration, and cataracts. So every organ system is affected by oxidative stress. And every disease that you know that people get as they age is related back to oxidative stress. So if you had the ability to reduce oxidative stress, that would be a good thing, right? So the way that Protandim does this is through this NRF2 pathway. And before I get into what that is and how that works, what I'd like to do is just step back and talk a little bit about regular old antioxidants, things that we all know about: vitamin E, vitamin C, beta carotene, and so forth. And you can't really go into a grocery store these days without seeing the term antioxidant listed on just about every product that you see. And you know, people are touting that as a healthy thing. And it's not a bad thing, it's certainly a good thing. But I'm going to tell you the difference between Protandim and everything else out there. So if you have, say, a molecule of vitamin C, that molecule of vitamin C will neutralize one free radical molecule, okay? And then it's one and you're done, the process is over. With Protandim, on the other hand, what happens is one molecule of SOD can neutralize literally 1 million free radical molecules before it's used up. So it's 1-to-1 versus 1,000,000 to 1. Dr. McCord used to use the analogy, it's like pouring a Dixie cup of water on a house fire, trying to use standard antioxidants like vitamin E, vitamin C, and beta carotene. Whereas with Protandim, it's like having a fire hose in every room of the house so that when the fire breaks out, you can put it out everywhere. That is the amazing difference between what we have with Protandim and all of the other antioxidants that are out there. The fruits, berries, juices, they're all good for you, but they don't have anywhere near the capacity to neutralize the free radicals. Mute your line, please. Thank you. So how does Protandim do this? Protandim increases the production of these antioxidant enzymes through this NRF2 pathway. NRF2, or NRF2 as we call it, is a protein that's in every cell in your body. And when that protein gets turned on by something such as Protandim, what it does is it moves from the cytoplasm of the cell into the nucleus. And as it moves into the nucleus, it attaches to a specific segment of DNA that then turns on genes downstream on that strand of DNA. So this is a nutrigenomic product, meaning that a nutritional supplement that actually has an effect on turning on and turning off genes. We are affecting the expression of genes with this product. And this is a completely new area of research that's really just come about within the last 5 to 10 years. And LifeVantage is at the forefront of that. And it's exciting to be involved with a company that is doing research in this area. So when NRF2 translocates, moves from the cytoplasm into the nucleus, attaches to the DNA. Genes downstream on that strand of DNA are turned on, and some are turned off. What it does is it turns on the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic genes, and it turns off the pro-inflammatory and pro-fibrotic genes. So you get the best of both worlds. More of the good stuff, less of the bad stuff, and the net result is a 40% reduction in oxidative stress over a 30-day period on average in humans. And like I said, we have the human clinical study that shows that. It was the first study you can find on PubMed. So when I first learned about this NRF2 pathway, I was very excited. And I thought to myself, why on earth didn't I learn about this in medical school? Well, I completed all my medical training in the mid-90s, and NRF2 hadn't even been discovered back then. So there's obviously no reason that anybody would be teaching it in medical school. And furthermore, they're still not teaching it in medical school because up until very recently, there were actually no drugs that worked on this NRF2 pathway. There is now, in the United States, there's a drug called Tecfidera for the treatment of multiple sclerosis that is an NRF2 activator. And there was a brand new drug just recently approved by our FDA here in the US for the treatment of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease that is also an NRF2 activator. That is a drug that came over from Japan, and the name of it is escaping me right now. But as we're seeing more and more research come out on NRF2, it's starting to become a bit more mainstream in the medical world. And within 5 years, I guarantee you that just about every physician worldwide is going to know what NRF2 is. But we're that early on the curve. And what a great place to be from a business standpoint when you look at how early we are in the whole NRF2 story. At least a dozen companies in the United States and a number of universities that currently have patents on synthetic NRF2 compounds that they're developing for drugs to treat all of those different diseases that I mentioned that are associated with oxidative stress, because these pharmaceutical companies are smart and they've recognized the role that oxidative stress plays in the development of these diseases. So most drugs that so there's a number of universities, a number of pharmaceutical companies that have developed these synthetic drugs that are NRF2 activators because they're now recognizing that instead of treating the end result of a disease, it's better if you can get to the root cause, which is oxidative stress. And so we're in a very unique position with Protandim being an all-natural supplement that activates that NRF2 pathway. There was an article that came out from Washington State University 2 years ago that I love to show to medical professionals because it's a nice review of all of the diseases that have been studied with regard to NRF2. And the basic theme of the article was just about every disease that they looked at, activating NRF2 seemed to have a beneficial effect. And one of their concluding statements was NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventive breakthrough in the history of medicine. And it's hard to say anything much more profound than that. Oregon State University has done a number of studies on the relationship of NRF2 and aging. And what they found is that those animals that have the highest levels of NRF2 live the longest and they stay healthiest the longest. So they have the longest health span and the longest lifespan. And so they dubbed NRF2 the longevity assurance factor. So what we've been talking about up until this point is Protandim NRF2, our flagship product. That's the one that the ABC News investigative report was about. And although the bottle has changed since that ABC report came out, the contents of the bottle have not. It's still the same. So the ingredients are green tea, turmeric, milk thistle, ashwagandha, and bacopa. And it's not really important that you understand what each one of these individual ingredients do. What's important is the synergistic effect of the five. And so NRF2 can be activated in any number of different spots. And most of the drugs that are being studied right now activate NRF2 at a single spot. But with Protandim, because of the 5 ingredients we have, the effect is actually 18-fold greater than the sum of their parts. Okay, so we have an 1800% enhanced effect by putting these 5 together. And that's likely because we're activating NRF2 at multiple locations rather than just one spot. And that's why to date, there has not been proven to be a more potent NRF2 activator out there than Protandim. That's also led to 6 patents in the US and 3 worldwide patents on our product. And so we don't have to worry about some generic version of this coming out at some point down the road. Now, I had mentioned early on, or Pamela had mentioned early on, that I did a fellowship in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. During that time, which was about 2 to 3 years ago, 2 of my instructors spoke about NRF2 for the first time that they had ever talked about it. And each one of them said, this is such an important topic that you guys are going to be hearing more and more about it. And I want you to hear about it first because this is going to be a very, very big deal. So as I mentioned earlier, if you go out and talk to a bunch of doctors, they're not going to know what NRF2 is, and they're therefore not going to understand what Protandim is or what it does. But if you talk to doctors who are involved with anti-aging medicine or functional or integrative medicine, those are the types of people that may actually have some understanding of this, because that's really the only place in the medical world where this is being taught right now. So one of the instructors that spoke on the topic was actually the chief science officer of another nutraceutical company. And his company had a product that was a NRF2 activator based off of sulforaphane, which is the active ingredient in broccoli, which is a NRF2 activator. And we have a study that shows that sulforaphane is about 1/6 to 1/7 as potent as Protandim at activating NRF2. But here's the statement that he concluded his talk about, and he spoke on NRF2 for about an hour. He said, NRF2 is a revolution in science and is the most important anti-aging pathway in the human body. Again, that's a pretty profound statement. So you're going to be seeing people who are learning about NRF2 in the anti-aging world, and this is going to be such a hot field in the next 5 to 10 years. Everybody is going to want to find a way to activate NRF2. And as I mentioned, we have the most potent way to do that that's ever been found. Now, the frosting on the cake, so to speak, for me was a study that came out earlier this year from the National Institute on Aging, which is a division of our National Institutes of Health here in the United States. And what they did is they were trying to see if there were any supplements out there that could extend lifespan. So this was an animal study. You can't really do longevity studies in humans, because if you think about it for a moment, who's going to be around to report on the research after everybody's died, right? 120 years from now. But the supplements that they looked at included fish oil, curcumin, green tea, resveratrol, and Protandim. And of those supplements, they only found one that extended lifespan, and that was Protandim. So this was not a study that was funded by LifeVantage in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they didn't even contact the company to let them know that they were doing the study at the beginning. And for the first half of the study, they found that they were underdosing the Protandim by 50%. So the results may actually have been better had they used the right dose from the beginning. But nonetheless, none of the other supplements extended lifespan, only Protandim. Now, any company in the world would give their left arm to have third-party validated research such as this showing that their product actually extended lifespan. So after hearing that study, if somebody does not choose to get on Protandim, I don't know what else to tell them. That's like the frosting on the cake for me, as I said. So in addition to Protandim, the company has a skincare line called True Science, which is an anti-aging skincare system that was developed as a direct result of Protandim. 2 of the earliest studies on Protandim were done at Louisiana State University. And the researchers there found that it had a profound effect in the skin. You should go and read those studies from Louisiana State University. They were related to skin cancer, and you should see what the results of the Protandim were. Nonetheless, the researchers went back to the company and they said, this stuff has such a profound effect on the skin, you guys should develop an anti-aging skincare line based off of this NRF2 technology. So that's exactly what they did. And with the True Science, they have a cleanse, a perfecting lotion, an eye corrector serum, and an anti-aging cream. And I never used to put anything on my face, but I use this stuff now every day, twice a day. And I'm actually 80 years old, so I think it works pretty well. I'm just kidding. Anyway, the True Science has the same ingredients that are in Protandim in a skin care cream, but it also has some additional components as well. But nonetheless, the NRF2 activation in the skin really does have profound effects, and you guys can probably find numerous before and after pictures using the True Science system, and people notice results within a relatively short period of time, such as even a month's time, they can see the results. So this stuff really, really does have a profound effect. Now, people have been giving their pets Protandim as well. And here in the US, we have a product called Pet Tandem, which is basically Protandim for dogs. But there's no reason why you can't give dogs regular Protandim. And that's, in fact, how it all got started with the Pet Tandem. People were giving their dogs Protandim, and dogs have a much higher level of oxidative stress than humans. They age faster, but they also respond to reducing oxidative stress much more quickly. So people were giving their dogs that had all of these different health conditions, arthritis and so forth, and they found that within a very short period of time, they were seeing remarkable results. And so you can go on YouTube and you can find numerous videos about dogs before and after Protandim, and you can see for yourself what it does. And it's interesting because sometimes humans, being skeptical beings that they are, will maybe not want to start Protandim for themselves, but they'll say, oh, well, I'll try it on my dog. And so they give it to their dog for 2 weeks, they see remarkable results, and then they come back to you saying, hey, you know, that really worked well in my dog. Maybe I should start taking it as well. So sometimes we get distributors or customers for Protandim for humans because of the effect that they've seen in their dogs. But we have an amazing product line here in the US. We've got a NRF1 activator as well that works on mitochondrial function. We've got Axio, which is brain food. We've got a weight management system as well. But in Australia right now, I understand you just have the Protandim NRF2 and the True Science. But that's all that we had when we got started as well. And the combination of those two things is incredible. You'll be getting other products as time goes on. But that's just a great way to start. And frankly, we built our business to a Pro 8 level with just Protandim NRF2 and True Science. So there's certainly a lot that you guys can do there until the other products get out. And I would just go out and talk to as many people as you can, get them the information, get them the science. That's really what got us going, was the science behind this. And that's all I do, is I go around and I teach people about the science behind Protandim, why it's fundamentally different than everything else out there on the market, and how there's nothing that can touch what Protandim does. And I've been taking it now for 6.5 years. I've noticed significant things in my own body. I've seen amazing, almost miraculous things in other people. And it's not that Protandim is a miracle pill, it's that we have a miracle body, but when you give it the right food, the things that it needs to heal itself, it can do so. And Protandim NRF2 is one of those things. And I will never stop taking Protandim NRF2. It's done so many remarkable things for me. So Pamela, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate you guys getting on so early in the morning over there. And I look forward to coming over and visiting you sometime soon.